each day. Where there's a will, there's a way.
Hello. Didn't mean to do that twice. All right. Sorry, I'm also conversing with people. Oh, this is too hot. Too hot. All right. I still got to do this. I got to, actually, I need to check something real quick because I should be posting straight to my Trudging Together group on Facebook now. Hello, Leisure Man. There's the Leisure Man. Twice in one day. Where are you home from work or something? It ain't here yet, so we'll see how that works. I had a missed call. I'm actually live right now. No, not a problem. Did you have a quick question? Okay. Oh, okay. Love you. Bye. All right. I don't think it posted to there. That sucks. I don't know how our MTP works. Oh, well. What are you going to do? What you going to do? What you going to do? Hi, Brandon friends. I'm happy to be living in a split level head. It's a song from Dr. Demento. If we have any Dr. Demento fans here. I grew up on Dr. Demento every Sunday night. Every Sunday night. All right. If you allow me, I'm going to, I'm just going to check this one more time. See if it went into the group. It did not. So screw RMTP. I'm not going to try and force my stuff anymore. It's just going to happen the way it's supposed to happen. Why is it not on Facebook at all? Stupid cookies. Yeah, it's not even going. It's not even going there. Oh, well. It was on Q103 here. It was. I don't remember what station it was on in Utah. That's where I started to listen to it. But, yeah. And I love me, and he loves him. I think one of my favorite songs was Dead Puppies. It goes, dead puppies aren't much fun. No, no, no. Or Dog Police. Did it? Yeah, see, now none of it went to my Facebook, so I'm really only on oh well. What are you gonna do? You know, oh wait a minute. No, it's on here. It's working. It's working, but oh, and then I have to hit the go live button. Okay. Oh, that's all right. Okay, give me a second here. There we go. It's live now. All right, I guess it is working. I don't know. Nothing like a face full of fuchsia and a tongue out. So it doesn't do very well with that. All right, let's get started. Yeah. So he said they're going to the mountains to Mass Effect universe, Dungeons and Dragons. I know a lot about Dungeons and Dragons. I started playing Dungeons and Dragons when I was 9, back in 1979. Hey, Julia, it's good to see. ¿Cómo está? I'm okay. How are you? It's about all the Spanish I know. I can read Spanish better than I can speak it. That's for sure. That's for sure. If you're here, please say hello, whether you're watching the live or the rewatch. So I'm going to be telling my story. My story is quite long. If I cover everything and kind of go through things. So I'm going to do it to the age of 30, and it still should still, you know, so did my mother. I'm a DM, Dion Miller. I'm a good DM too. I went beyond that though. I wrote a whole book about live action role play. This is 25 years ago, right? And yeah, I used to have to put together like a full weekend. Have you ever written a story for 20 people who are just going to screw up the whole darn thing? Because then people don't follow what they're supposed to follow. They go over here, they do this. Okay. And it's supposed to be linear, which means certain things are supposed to happen. But when you get together and everybody has their own stuff, it becomes non-linear. And I loved it because it was such a challenge that I would have to change the story like this all the time. Now I can't do that crap. Now I put video games on easy mode. All right, let's get started. And feel free to comment. Feel free to comment here if so let's just go ahead and get started. Let's get started. I was born. You need that book? You're a filmmaker. See, look at all the talent in AA. Yeah. So good for you. All right. I was born in Ogden, Utah. I grew up in Utah until I was 9 years old. Come here, Jack. This is Jack. Look how fat he is. Fat. Woo! All right. I screw with all my cats. I screw with all of them. But oh, hi Sawyer, the jealous one. Yeah, it was. I hear you. Can't quite use my brain. So I was born in Ogden, Utah. And some of my earliest memories. I don't know how old I was. I think I was probably 3. But when I didn't get what I wanted, I kind of ran away. I remember that I didn't run away. I like to discover things. And I remember one time I left the house. Maybe I was a little bit older than that because I remember I tried to go get into Pizza Hut, right? But I couldn't figure out how to open the door. For years, it took me forever to figure out how to open a frickin' Pizza Hut door. It was weird. I don't know why. I remember hanging out with some people and listening to Judas Priest. I remember that music it's always been big in my world. But growing up, the way I like to describe it is I wasn't a problem child yet, but I was a child with a lot of problems, if that makes sense, right? So one of the things, oh, it did appear on it. Sweet. Anyway, just glad it worked. But it doesn't seem to be going into my page. Let me check this real quick, and I'll make sure that I just gotta double check this and see if it did it right. And it is loading. It did work. All right, it's all working. Wow, good for me. Thank you, God. One of the first things, one of the problems that I had growing up, I had a lazy eye. Still have a lazy eye. It's this one. If you can't tell, it's this one because you can see more white in this eye over here. Okay. And I used to have to wear a patch, right? I have to wear a patch on this eye so that it would strengthen my eyes. And I'll tell you how it wasn't until, I don't know, the last couple of years that it started going back over. I did a lot of reading, a ton of reading. I read and read and read, and it gave my eye strength. Anyway, I remember my parents could never remember which eye to put it on, and that used to upset me. My thought was, well, there's a 50-50 chance here, and you can't, now that I'm a parent, it's a little different. I will be talking about my parents and my family, and I want you to know that my relationship with my mother is exemplary. Okay, I have a very good relationship with my mother now. Okay? The man that raised me, he does what he wants. We'll leave it at that. Okay. Next thing was my speech impediment. Actually, I would have said it speech impediment. And what I used to do is I would say my S's through my nose, and that's how I talked. Right, like my brother's not. And so they took me to and school is a big factor in a lot of this because I'm going to tell you now, I was so bored. I was always bored, and I was disruptive. At the same time, I didn't have any friends. I did not have friends. I would not have a permanent or a real friend until the end of junior high, beginning of high school. And now I remember high school for me was about 14, 15 years old. That was the other thing. I'm born in September, so I was always a year younger than everybody in my class, and I was always smaller. I got picked on a lot. My name was Dion Bates, and I was a bedwetter until I was 11 years old. I'm going to get back to the S. Don't worry about that. 11, 12. Can't remember, so I'm going to go with 11. Okay. And therefore, I did not have sleepovers. Sleepovers isn't, no. And I certainly didn't sleep over at anybody else's house. But, it was tough because my name was Dion Bates, and the movie The Toy didn't make things any better. And, I was often called, what'd you pee on, Dion Master Bates? And those were by my brothers. And they knew, but they would call me Peon Dion, right? And it's exactly why I named my children the way I did so that nobody could pick on their name. It's also why I kept the last name Miller, but we will get to that. Yeah, no one, if you had my problems, you'd drink too. Right? Thanks, Leisure. Right. I can still play D&D. All I need is some dice. I just need some dice. That's it. I'll make the rest up. Doesn't matter. All right, because I don't want to kill off characters, but I will. But the speech impediment, I was taken to the doctor, and they said, well, he's mentally retarded, and so they put me in the classes, right? And they were wrong. It was a speech impediment. But my life included, when I was younger, I always kind of missed out on everything that everybody else got to do. The recorder, I wanted to play the recorder real bad. Well, you see, in Utah, you played the recorder in 5th grade. Or in Utah, yeah, you played it in 5th grade, at least when I was going there. And I finished up 4th grade. We were 9 years old, and we moved to Colorado. Well, in Colorado, you played it in the 4th grade. And so I missed out on it, and I wasn't able to do it. I started to get into music, and I asked my parents, hey, I'd like to start drums. And I'd like to play drums. And they're like, oh, no. And so they made me play trumpet, and I hated it. I didn't like it. I wanted to play drums. And I'll tell you something, when I was 30 years old, actually it was about 30 years old. I picked up a drum set. 9 months later, I was headlining at Herman's Hideaway. So it just felt like another thing that I'd fucking missed out on, right? Is how it felt. So those were the 3 major kind of factors. But I got to a point when I was probably 9, 10, when I got tired of people picking on me, and I started pushing back. I started talking smack. And I got beat up quite often because of it. They weren't really fights. It was more like I got shoved to the ground, and that was about it. I've been in 3 fights in my life, and I hate fighting. I do not like physical fighting because I black out. And I kicked the crap out of all 3 of them, and all of them outweighed me by a lot. It was that rage in me. It was the rage. And that rage would build and build and build. I grew up I have 2 older brothers. When I was growing up, I would find out later that I had a lot more family. I remember riding in the car with my mom to the liquor store because I always went with her because I was a protector. Even though I was the black sheep, my mom was the only one that gave a fuck about me at all. So I always protected her. In fact, December 4th, 1979, when I was 9 years old, 8 years old, seven. I was 7. Sorry, I have to think about this stuff. The man that raised me said he informed me that mom was not going to have a cake that night, and I was pissed. I remember this clearly, and I wasn't mad because I wanted cake. I was mad because I knew what it felt like to be left out. That's why I was mad. And I'm like, well, everybody else got a birthday, That's what I said. I'm like, everybody else, including you, got a birthday cake this year. How come my mother's not getting one? Well, and I guess the explanation wasn't good enough for me, so I ran away. And it was snowing outside. I was found very, very quick. People knew who I was. I remember a nice lady giving me hot chocolate, right? But I'm going to tell you what happened. She got the cake. And what did that tell me? Well, if Dion runs away, he gets what he wants. That if Dion screws around a little bit, he gets what he wants. And I would utilize this. Yes, I would. I remember intentionally. All right. So we moved to Colorado. And we don't have to go to church anymore. Yay. I grew up Mormon. You know what? I grew up Mormon, but I don't remember anything. I did not pay attention. I paid less attention at church. I was looking at the girls because I never went through the stage of not liking girls. I never went through it. You're like, you can have a girlfriend? I'm like, yeah, you want to be my girlfriend? I'll tell you what it was. I just wanted to be one. I didn't have any friends. So it's like nobody wanted. So I had to find something. I knew women were a little bit more emotional that way, but I wasn't popular. I never have been. I never will be. And now I don't want to be. Right. See, I've been telling my story about 12 minutes and we're still in the 10, But these things all add up. This is the life of an alcoholic. This is the best way that I can describe my life until I was 13, 14, when I took that first drink, that first real drink, right? Dry drunk. That's what I was. I was a dry drunk. I did not know. I couldn't hold a relationship. I couldn't seem to get along with other people. I felt useless in this world, right? By the time I got to 5th grade, we were here in Colorado. And I grew, I was in the Littleton district, Littleton school district. And I would be expelled from Littleton public schools, which is funny because eventually I would go back as part of the West Side Drug Free Youth Team to promote being off drugs and alcohol. And the security at the high school remembered who I was. This was only about 3 years after I would have graduated. Not even that. I was 19. Right. Anyway, so I digress. We were driving to the liquor store with my mom. So we were swerving to Arapahoe Liquor off Arapahoe Road in University. Funny story, when my mom got sober, about a month after she got sober, it shut down. So the joke was they were just refurbishing it. Right. And she proceeded to tell me that the man that was raising me was not my biological father. And I already knew this. This was not new news to me. I was a pretty smart kid, man. But it wasn't hard to figure out. I was the only one with brown hair and brown eyes. Okay. My older brother, we knew he had a different father. Everybody knew that. That's where Miller comes from. Right. I wasn't supposed to be Bates. I was supposed to be Miller. This actually screwed some things up for me. right? Because if I would have known that from the beginning, I would have known why I was so fucking different. Okay. So she proceeded to tell me that I had a different father. I'm like, yeah, I know. And I found out his name. But at that time, you know, and we were under the impression that he was either dead or still drinking. But this is the story. My mom got pregnant. She went to go tell him that she was pregnant. He was in jail for breaking into somebody's house and stealing guns while drunk. Okay. She said, he said, well, I could take care of you, but you got to move out to California. My mom wasn't willing to do that. Her choice. Okay. Her choice. I'm glad she didn't stay with him. Because then she wouldn't have met Roger, who's my stepdad, and he's perfect for my mother. And I remember thinking, that I actually felt bad for my mom. I felt bad for her to have to tell me that after so many years. But at least she was honest with me before I figured it out, right? And I was willing to give that. So let's move forward a little bit. My mom's drinking started to get pretty heavy. This is when she was working in the dynamite factory. And yes, a dynamite factory. And she'd come home from work, she'd go upstairs, put on her TV shows, and drink until she passed out, like any alcoholic does. And what I did, and our dad always worked late. My older brother Scott, who was the hero, he was never home. He made sure he was never ever home. So it fell on me to take care of my little brother and sister. And I'm not saying I did everything, but I did a lot of it. I would pay the bills. I would feed the kids. I would make sure they did their homework. I would make sure that they were bathed and that they were put to bed. Once they were put to bed, I would go in, I would sneak into my mother's room. I was dipping at the time. I didn't smoke yet. I would steal 2 beers. Okay. I was 12, 13, around there. And I would go downstairs after the kids were put to bed, usually about 10 o'clock. I'd have 2 beers, one during Taxi and one during, I think it was MASH at the time. But I remember I always watched Taxi at 10. They were reruns. And I'd go to bed, just like every adult in this world. Yeah. When I was 13, my mom got sober. When my mom was 13, when I was 13, my mom got sober. She now has 40 years of sobriety. She's 20, 25, 40. Yeah. Okay. Just make sure I have the right ages. And this changed things for me. Because now my mom was involved with the children again. And she started taking over these things. And I started to get very, very angry. Okay. And I would start drinking. Now there wasn't alcohol in the house. So I had to start finding these other ways to get alcohol. And somehow I was always capable of getting it, even at that age. Okay. So it had gotten to the point where I wasn't going to school. I would meet up with some people at school. Oh, this is the part. I can't skip this part. All right. I think my mom was sober at this time. Not sure. But I remember in junior high, I got invited to a party. And I'm not even sure if I got invited or if I just invited myself and showed up. I don't remember. But I do remember this. I remember the basement. I remember, there are certain points that I remember. And we started drinking. And of course, I had a higher tolerance than the rest of them. And suddenly, Dion was cool. Bam. And there were 13 years that melted, a bullshit that kind of melted away from me because I thought I had arrived. I thought I had made it. Okay. It's 13. This is already the thinking that, people were always a lot more immature than me until I got older and would refuse to grow up past 13. Right. So we were drinking, and I remember everybody kind of got through a beer. And remember, I'm used to 2 beers. I mean, sure, it gave me a buzz, but I wasn't drunk. And so we're all drinking, and suddenly everybody liked Dion. And it didn't take but a couple months for me to take something. It's called when an alcoholic or somebody who has been picked on all their life suddenly has power or control, they do not know how to handle it. Okay, I can go back to D&D and LARPing on that. Okay, bunch of geeks and nerds who have been picked on their whole life suddenly have power in this game. Oh, they go crazy they go mad with power, right? And I started doing whatever the fuck I wanted to, whatever. If I didn't want to go to school, I didn't go to school, right? And then remember, I said earlier that the consequences that were given to me were just giving me what I wanted. So what would they do? Well, they would suspend me. And when they didn't have in-school suspension back then, they did a little bit later, so I stopped doing it. Hey, I just got sneakier at it. They put the slips out, I signed myself out, things like that. I walked around the school, nobody noticed. I was kind of an enigma. People didn't really notice me. All right. And so, I wouldn't go to school and they'd suspend me. I'm like, yay, thank you for giving me exactly what I wanted. I didn't have failing grades, but I didn't necessarily have A's and B's. Because you want to know why? Because I didn't want to. Okay. I did not attend high school. I was enrolled for a semester, but the only reason I showed up to high school was to meet up with my friends. We'd go back to somebody's house. They'd buy me a 12-pack, and I'd watch them trip acid because I want to do acid. I'd been to Alateen, and I knew if I started doing acid, I wouldn't be able to have my alcohol, and that wasn't something I was okay with. I know. Right? Alateen saved me from a lot. Because when my mom got sober, like I said, I supported her. So I would go to AA meetings with her. First time I went to Dragon's Den down off Clarkson was in 1984. And Ray Hayworth was there. Didn't know that man was going to save my life. Just 4 years later, okay? So I gotten very, very angry, and my parents finally sat me down and they said, Dion, why are you so mad? Okay, and I'd already been going to therapy for about a year. So this was, and since I didn't have friends, I knew how people work. So it was easy to manipulate. It was very easy to manipulate people for me. When you're younger, it's a little bit easier, right? But in this case, I told them the truth. I said, I've been taking care of these kids for years, and now you just want to jump in and take care of this. And I felt like I had told them the truth. So, now I'm going to hold on for it. I'm going to hold on for a second here. Rob, who the fuck do you think you are, dude? Don't come on here peddling fucking, I'm sitting here telling a story and you want to come on here and sell your wares. Okay. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to give you another chance. Okay. But I see one more of those up there. I have CPTSD. And now you want to peddle mushrooms to me? I've done my fair share of mushrooms. Shame on you, motherfucker. Shame on you. I'm just going to go ahead and block you. You're blocked, dude. Bye. There you go. Yeah. Dear Lord. And if you're in my Facebook group, get out. Get out. All right. Bullshit. Dear Lord. See, everybody just wants to peddle their crap. I'm sitting here trying to help people. People are like, buy my shrooms. Buy my shrooms. You know what? Fuck you. Fuck you, dude. And shame on you. God. So I felt I did what I felt like was tell the truth, right? And a week later, I was sent to Comitis Crisis Center. Okay. And I should have been. I know the sound of it sucks. The sound of it sucks. It does. And it did suck. I ended up in a place called Comitas Crisis Center, which I would work 4 years later. And then I went to a place called Mount Airy Psychiatric Center. And this is where I learned how to manipulate people very, very, very well. And I would never, ever be honest about my feelings to them again. Nope. I played the game. I'm like, I can play this game. So I'm gonna shoot through this part because I mean, I went from group home to group home to group home. Sometimes I'd be able to go home for a month or two. It just didn't work out. I was out of control. Like I said, I did whatever the fuck I wanted. Right? So I'm just going to tell you one part. I remember I had to go to court each month to do a checkup with Commissioner Allen. That was my judge. We were close. I still remember her name. I remember exactly what she looked like too. And she said, at one point, she said, now, Mr. Bates, did you know your last name's Miller? And I said, yeah, but I prefer to go by Bates because, I was trying to be respectful to the man that raised me. That's what I was trying to do. And she said, well, you need to go by Miller because that is your legal name. So you need to start by going by Miller. And I said, well, we're here. Can you just help me change my name to Bates? And she said, you can do that when you emancipate because you are a ward of the state. And I found out that my parents had given up the rights to me. And I left there going, fuck them. I wouldn't see my mom for a while. I wouldn't see her. All right. Next thing I did when I got back to Arapahoe House or Arapahoe Shelter, Arapahoe House was another company. I called my caseworker and said, I want to be emancipated. And by the time I was 16 and a half, I was emancipated from my parents and the state. And I was an adult. Man. By the time I was 17, I was living on Skid Row. It didn't take long. And there's a lot of stories in there. There's a lot of stories, but we know them, don't we? You're familiar with them. I was 17 years old, living on Skid Row, almost 18. And I would be on Skid Row off and on for about 6 months. And no, not sleeping in a car. So all those yets. Now, they didn't happen to me by then. I have to finish this up by 2:00. Give me 1 second. I apologize. Darn it. Where is he? There he is. 2:15. That says 3:25. 2:15. All right. Thank you for letting me do that. My mom would still be trying to help me out. She did. Okay. And I'm going to reiterate that. My parents did the best that they could. They did with what they had to work with at the time. All right. I've worked through a lot of my trauma. I've been to therapy. I've done EMDR. I've done everything that is necessary for me to heal from this. And it did work. I'll let you know that. Somehow I had wiggled I was in step 13, which is now called step Denver. Now you're probably like, step 13? Here's the problem with society. We want to pervert every fucking thing out there. Step 13 meant you died sober. That's what it meant. I come back to AA and it's like, oh, step 13 is when you're hitting on somebody now. That is not a 13th step. 13th step means that Step Denver had to change it because of people's perversions. Anyway, so my mom had gotten me in there. And I didn't make it. I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. And somehow I wiggled my way back into sleeping on friends' couches for a few weeks, but that didn't last long. And one day, a friend of mine came up, Steve. God, I hope he gets sober. My friend Steve. Yeah, I've had a couple of my childhood friends. They died from drinking, but he said, "Dion, we can't do this for you anymore." He had figured it out. It's like, we're not going to do this for you anymore. You're a hanger on. We're all getting ready to go back to college. Yeah, it was March. So I don't think it was college. But he said, here's $5. I'm going to take you to the bus stop, and you're going to need to go downtown and go to the shelter. And I didn't have any choice. He dropped me off. Okay? He saved my life, is what he did. See, God works in mysterious ways. I got downtown. It was about 4:45, 4:30, 4:45. Sun was going down, starting to go down. It was getting dark. It was really, really cold. I had a jacket with a sleeveless Iron Maiden t-shirt on. This was March 16th, 1989. March 16th, 1989. Also, I've been dating someone at the time. I'll keep this story short. The person I'm married to now, my wife Shannon, was my high school sweetheart. I was her high school sweetheart. I wasn't in high school, but she was 17, or I was 17 and she was 15. And she stuck through me with all of that. Right? She stuck with me, man. So anyway, March 16th, 1989, I'm walking down Lawrence Street. I'm at about 20th and Lawrence. And I see this young guy is walking in front of me. He's carrying a 6-pack from 7-Eleven. Of course, I'm presuming it's alcohol. It wasn't, it was Pepsi. And we're walking along, and he kind of keeps looking back and looking back. And finally, he turns around after about a block, and he said, "Hey, are you okay?" I mean, he must have had empathy or something. And he turns around, he's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not." And I told him everything that was going on with me. He said, "You know what? I might be able to help you. Why don't you come with me?" And I followed him. When we get down to 22nd and Lawrence, and a block away is Jesus Saves and Salvation Army. But we don't keep going. We stop at this building on the corner of 22nd and Lawrence. Door opens, the bright light comes right out into my face. I see the AA symbol on the wall, and I go, fuck, they got me again. Now, if we were in a group setting, there'd be a bunch of people laughing right now. Right? And I walked in, and I'm walking out from the dreary street on fucking Skid Row to see all these people enjoying themselves, laughing. Turned out to be a place called the Phoenix Concept, and it was run by Ray Hayworth. It's something I'm trying to bring back. It was a year-long program. He said, "Why don't you stick around for the 5:30?" So I did. I got myself a coffee. I even remember right where I was sitting, right? It was a big square, big room, right? And there was all these grungy Skid Row alcoholics, and it was run by this man who was, 4'9", 70 pounds wet. But he carried himself with all this courage. And I was attracted immediately. I'm like, I need what that guy has. And it was Ray. And he became my first sponsor. I didn't know that this was a halfway house. I thought I was just in an AA meeting. I had no idea what I was going to do. So I threw the rest of my money into the basket. I had like a little bit left from taking the bus and grabbing a pack of smokes and stuff. And hey, Amber, good to see you, honey. And so I threw the rest of my money in there, and it turned out that it was a halfway house for homeless alcoholics. Now, I was 18 and a half at the time. Good job. Good job. Woo. Should have been here when somebody brought up microdosing. I ripped his ass apart. First time I ripped a troll. First time. I usually try and bring them in. So, but anyway, right. and they gave me a bed. It was a year-long program, and I did finish the program. During this time, a lot of nothing. It's nothing short of a miracle on what happened to me, and that would be my first spiritual experience that I would have. Since that time, I've had hundreds of spiritual experiences. But if we, I don't know if you ever heard of, footprints in the sand, but that's exactly what was going on. See, God was carrying me. I never didn't not believe in God. I had different thoughts on God. I used him in emergencies and things like that. I would get to be a part of a place called the Westside Drug Free Youth Team after I'd been there a few months. There was a guy that used to come in there. His name was Patrick B. Hill. Great guy. Great guy. You know, and so I was part of the Westside Drug Free Youth Team. And we won Best Prevention Team 2 years in a row. 2 years in a row. When I was about, I don't know, 6, 7 months sober, there was in September, because that's when the recovery walk is. Still goes on today, but it's owned by, I'm taking it back from her. She stole it because it was run by Arapahoe House. Right? And there was this drug-free walk. Thousands of people. And we had won the award just a few days before. And Patrick comes up to me. He's like, hey, would you like to, the governor Roy Romer, wants to know if you'd like to speak on behalf of the team. I'm like, what? So I got to go on right after Roy Romer, and I'm standing on the Capitol steps, a Skid Row drunk. Shannon was there. She was standing right next to me. I'd be on TV. I'd be on radio, helping people out. By the time I was 20, I was a drug and alcohol counselor, the youngest drug and alcohol counselor Arapahoe House had ever had. Joe Wright, the person that ran Arapahoe House, was my mother's sponsor. I was deeply ingrained in recovery. I'd find my first wife in AA. How did Rob go from dark-skinned, dark-haired man to a white old American? It's so funny. You keep me laughing. I remember once we had gone up the mountain, Silverthorne. We went to is it kind of figured? I will, yeah. Isn't that funny? I was gonna check after. Thanks for checking on that for me, Amber. But we had gone up to Silverthorne for a drug-free conference. And on the way back, we were going down that one part where there's all those rocks there. The van broke down. And we were trying to figure it out. And the weirdest thing, after, I don't know, probably been about 45 minutes, I said, why don't we all hold hands and pray? Why don't we all hold hands and pray? And I bet God will take care of us. And we did. And the van started. Neat things. Now, I said I was going to cover till 30. I'm only at age 20. So the next years I would, at one point he was a cat. So funny. I wouldn't stay in the industry for very long. I got married before I was legal age to drink. That's why. No, I was a drug and alcohol counselor at 19, not 20. But and I would help a lot of people. I was a big proponent of what was called CISIPA, Colorado Coalition of Young People in AA. And I did a lot of prevention. I would work detox, treatment, outpatient. I was one of the drug and alcohol counselors for Abraham Lincoln High School. That was an adventure. I'd go to pull kids out of class, and people would stop me. They're like, "And can I have your hall pass?" I'm like, "I work here." All right. I get married twice. I get married, divorced because of LARPing, live action role play. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Got a son out of that. I get married again. I did this stuff all for the wrong reasons, but I'm just running out of time. Even then, I hadn't figured out emotional sobriety, and it was more use and abuse. So, I can certainly help you with that, Amber. You bet I can. Now, you're not going to find much help there. Google will only lead you to government programs now. Watch this. I need help for my drinking.
Help is available by
Yeah, we
calling
know, blah, blah,
988
blah.
Suicide and Crisis Lifeline at
Northglenn
988.
Pathways.
That number again is 988.
Invagro Tech. No to alcohol rehab. Break the cycle today. No wait list. Outpatient. There's SAMHSA. Treatment for alcohol problems. Alcohol support. What types of alcohol treatment? Wow. No. Oh, there's AA. It's all the way down at the bottom. They don't want you to go to AA. Anyway, I'm kind of off there. So, and I'm going to cover the last part of my recovery into my relapse. When I had about 8-9 years, I stopped going to AA. I think it was 8 years. I don't know. It was somewhere. It's between 8 and 10. Before my double digits, about the same amount of time I have right now. And I quit going to AA. I'm like, I don't really need it. And now I'm married now, and I got to do this. LARPing interferes with that, and and that's what happened. Soon, it wasn't, but I would continue to pray. But eventually, even the praying would go away, and then my anger came back for a few years. And then on July 4th, I went to. I was actually working at Lucent Technologies, and because I was a phone technician for a while. I used to put in really big, large phone systems and set the voicemail and do all this other stuff. It gave way one day to a Coors Light, and there was no real reason aside from the fact that everybody else was drinking and have a good time, and I was feeling that pressure of Dion's not allowed to drink. Even some of my friends would say, "Well, you got sober at 18. Who isn't an alcoholic at 18? Maybe it was just a phase. Maybe it was this. Maybe it was that." Even though all the evidence showed that I had hit bottom. See, the difference was I went to Skid Row. They went to college. That was a big difference, right? So I'm going to kind of end it with this is, this is not something that is done with. And it'll always be a weed program. I will always need good people in my life. I will always need supportive people in my life. Now, I'm very particular on who those people are. Okay. And if I've told you that I consider you a friend, it's a big fucking deal to me. It's a big deal to me because I didn't have friends. Did you hear me bring up anybody's name that was a friend? No. One. That was Steve. Right. So, I think that I was so far out of reality that the person that I called my best friend, I don't think they felt that way. I don't think they felt that way. We wrote a whole book together. We were always around each other. Maybe at one time we were best friends, right? But alcohol fucked that up. It did. He doesn't want anything to do with me now. Of course, his drinking's out of control. So now he really doesn't want me to be around. So I have his address because I still owe him a little bit of money, and I will get that paid. Right? So don't ever think that you don't need a support system. And it may not, a lot of people move on from AA. My mom, she does a lot of well-briety and stuff. She works with, she still does her service work. She does all the other things, goes to AA every now and again, but her life is full of service and stuff. Not only that, but she was a drug and alcohol counselor for 38 years. So my father died with 52 years of sobriety. It turned out that when he got out of jail, he went to AA and never drank again. Yeah. Pretty cool, huh? mean, now my life, a lot of people know how my life is. Look at all the things that I get to do in my community. Look at all the people that I get to help, right? And it's nice because I don't feel the need to go on Facebook or anywhere else to brag about any of that. I do not. So, all right. See, just up to that, and I skipped a lot of stuff, took 50 minutes. So I thought I was, I can do this in 45. No. So, all right. Well, that's the first half because I would go out for 15 years. I relapsed at 30. I got back at 45. There were a lot of adventures in there, like learning how to play the drums. Yeah, a lot of stuff. But what do we call those? We call them war stories. And they need to be limited. This was a story, but I didn't tell a war story. What I was trying to do is let you know you're not the only one. You're not the only one. And you don't have to be alone. It's not something you have to do anymore. I'd have to say the one thing I'm grateful for more than anything in the program is my loneliness is gone. Because I was lonely there for a long time. All right. I was supposed to meet with another closed mouth friend who I'm helping like 12 minutes ago. So, all right. Thank you everybody for being here. I appreciate it. I love you. I really do. Except for asshole. Now I can't scroll down because I got rid of it, but Amber took care of it for me. See, I don't even have to do anything. My friends take care of this shit for me. Did you know I've never had people in my life that said, did you just talk shit about Dion? Did you just fuck with Dion? I don't think so. Never had that in my life. I love you. Peace out. And